So I really like having conversations around the differences and similarities between different games because I think it makes for good content. It's a discussion. And in recent weeks, we've been anticipating Starfield coming out, but we've been, so deep into Baldur's Gate 3 territory that a lot of people have been like, "Oh, forget about it. Baldur's Gate 3 is the only game I'm going to be playing for the next 2 years." Well, that's not me. I'm a content creator, so I have to look at lots of different games. I did a video recently talking about why I quit MMOs to focus on console games and RPGs and small little multiplayer games. And I think for me, looking at the value of what I get out of RPGs these days, it's far superior to what I used to get out of MMOs, where you're only focused on one game, which means you're limited in the types of content you can create for your channel. Here, with Starfield and Baldur's Gate 3 and Cyberpunk and all the other things that are coming up, when I look at the value that I'm getting out of like the Xbox Game Pass subscription or what I used to get at a PlayStation Plus, there's a ton of content to look at with great games. And that's the thing. There are great games coming out all the time. And I know a lot of people like to poke at Starfield and say Bethesda sucks and bugs and Todd Howard betrayed me. None of that's real. That's all mythology. That's all whatever issues that people have as individuals. It's just Baldur's Gate 3 as an example. It got like a 97 at PC Gamer, right? Everyone looked at it and said, it's the best game that's ever been made. It's definitely worthy of the title. All that's true, right? It is a great game. It's worthy of the title. However, look at the hot fixes that have been coming out from Larian Studios. And I'm very curious about why people want to give Larian Studios a pass when they have literally, look at hotfix 1, 2, 3, and 4. They've fixed thousands of bugs at this point, and they've talked about how patch 1 has more than 1,000 things in it, and patch 2 is going to be equally big, and there's a difference between the hot fixes and the patches. So they are fixing thousands and thousands of bugs with their game. So why is no one calling Larian Studios out on a buggy launch as opposed to Bethesda, who have had issues in the past, as has BioWare, as has CD Projekt Red, as has Blizzard, as has Sony Online. Every game company that has ever released something in the era of the internet has had bugs that they have to then go in and patch and fix. Some of this relates to back in the day. Someone left this comment on my channel the other day. They said, "Well, back in the day, before the days of the internet, a game wouldn't launch until it was ready, and it just wouldn't launch until it was ready. And if it was a buggy game, it just wouldn't sell copies." Partially true. However, what no one considers in their arguments when they make that point is that back in the day, we didn't have 20 million people buying a game to play because gaming was not for the masses. It was a much, much smaller niche product. If you sold 100,000 copies, you were a rock star among game developers. If you sold 10,000 copies, man, we had a successful launch. Even looking at Baldur's Gate 3, Larian came out and said in public that when they saw that they had 800,000 plus concurrents on Steam, they kind of fell backwards, flabbergasted, because for them, they were looking at if we have 100,000 concurrents, that's going to be an amazing launch for us. And they did, multiple times that launch. Going back in time to before the days of the internet and everything else, games might have launched with a more completed version for the most part. Games that didn't launch bug free had a very difficult time of it. But there were so many fewer people playing those games that the amount of bugs that could potentially crop up were much smaller. We also didn't have 500 different types of graphics cards and 500 different types of chipsets and 1,000 different types of motherboards and all of these things that factor into games having issues in the modern era, which is one of the reasons I prefer gaming on a console these days because of the fact that a console version is the same for everyone. So it's much easier for a company to fix all of these bugs that could potentially cause problems for people when you're only looking at the one. And so you only have version control for one device, maybe two if you're looking at PlayStation and Xbox. But when you start getting into PC gaming, there are literally tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of variations that can happen between motherboards, chipsets, graphics cards, monitors, types of RAM, types of VRAM, types of hard drives people are using, whether or not they've patched up. I mean, it's just there's so many things that factor into the conversation. So when I look at people who will say, um, I'm not going to play Starfield because it's going to be a buggy mess when it launches. But in the same breath, they are praising Larian Studios for creating the best game they've ever played, and it's such an amazing game. These are the types of people, when they make those comments, I immediately throw what they say out the window because it's not a valid point of view. They don't know what they're talking about. You cannot criticize one company and give another company a pass when it comes to bugs when every single company in the world releases a game that has bugs in it, because that's just the nature of the world we live in today. You cannot create a bug-free experience for a PC when you have all of the variables that I just mentioned. And that's a very important thing to talk about in terms of understanding what are the differences between like Starfield and Baldur's Gate 3? Well, really the only difference is that one game is set in space, one game is a fantasy game. Now, there are obviously other differences that go beyond that. We're looking at, as an example, I can't do first person POV in Baldur's Gate 3, but I can in Starfield. Um, in terms of the party system, if I'm not mistaken, with Starfield, you're going to be able to have one companion that comes with you, like traditionally in other Fall. I think in other Bethesda games, if I remember correctly, haven't played anything in a while, but I'm thinking back to like Skyrim, you can have like one companion that comes with you, I think. Whereas in Baldur's Gate 3, you have three companions that come with you. So there are little differences, but the core essence of both of these games is that they are RPGs, right? They're role-playing games. They are, for the most part, single-player RPGs. Yes, Baldur's Gate 3 has a multiplayer component, but that's separate to this conversation. When you look at the single-player component, you can go through, you have a storyline, you have a player character whose story you are following, you have companions that can join you, you have a home, a camp. What's up, everybody? Quick commercial break here to give it a shout out to our guild champions, who are the highest tier memberships here on YouTube: Ancient Entity, Assassin Gamer 94, Bubbleonia Rising, Crazy's Relative, Mujin, and Remedy. Thanks so much for the highest tier membership. And thanks to all of the members who support the channel, because you keep me doing this full time. You too can become a supporter if you're new here. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon so you never miss an update. Join as a member. There's 3 different tiers. We do lots of special stuff, private polls, private videos. You get a shout out if you're the highest tier membership, but you can also do one-off donations in the form of super chats on any live stream or premiere you see, and of course super thanks on any upload or YouTube short. Whatever you can contribute, it's great. Keeps me on the air full time, keeps the cats fed, keeps the homestead running. Anyway, back to the video, everybody. Camp. You have cosmetic items. You have ways that you can decorate your home or your camp, outpost, etc. Starfield also has, on top of all of those things, you're dealing with space flight and having a spaceship. But there's the same conversation. Checks are happening in both the games based on your persuasion skill, deception skill, intimidation skill, so on and so forth. There's combat in both the games, although one game is turn-based and the other game is, open first-person shooter type game. So there are a lot of similarities, but a lot of differences as well. But at the end of the day, what it really comes down to, in the terms of what this discussion is about, what this video is about, is that you just can't point your finger at any given game company and say, I'm not going to play their games because they're buggy when they launch, when at the same time you're willing to praise another company who you claim has an amazing game and everything else, but you're somehow willing to turn a blind eye to the bugs that are happening. And by the way, this is not a criticism of Larian Studios. Larian Studios is a god among men right now. Like, they have produced something that is beyond anybody's wildest expectations. And whether or not it's going to set a new standard for the gaming industry is another discussion completely. But the one thing that is true is that even though they have worked their asses off and they have created a magical title, look at the hot fixes. Look at the upcoming patches. They have already fixed thousands of little things, and they are fixing thousands more in the upcoming patches. Which means, in terms of did Baldur's Gate 3 have a buggy launch? Oh, yeah, it did. I didn't have that many bugs. I've not had any game breaking bugs, but I've definitely seen little things which I've talked about in other videos, like the UI bug that happened the first, I think, 24 to 48 hours, but they quickly hot fixed that out. I had another bug where the anti-magic field was on my, saying it was on my characters, even though it wasn't. It didn't impact my casting, but there was an annoying red pop-up that was constantly across my screen. Other people have had other issues, but I haven't seen anything game-breaking, but other people have. So bugs exist in every single game. Consider the fact that back in the day, 10 to 15,000 people might play a game, maybe 100,000 people. That would be a really, really good game in the pre-internet days. And then once we moved into games as a service and gaming as a, international thing where we have billions of people playing games now, it's a completely different beast. So you literally cannot compare the way games are launched today to the way they were launched in like the 80s or the 90s or so on and so forth, because it's just different. And there's something in my beard, I just noticed, everybody. There's like a piece of paper or something. If that's been there the whole time, and I don't know what that was, probably a piece of tissue is what it looks like. I'm so sorry, everybody. It's like the ketchup stains on the shirt, man. I'm just that kind of a gamer. Like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon if you'd like to hear more pontifications from me. Check out the Discord. Links are down below. All the other playlists, podcasts, TV show reviews, film reviews, and all the other things we do here on the channel. And hopefully I'll see you in an upcoming live stream, which happens daily at 11 a.m. Central. In the meantime, get back to gaming, everybody. It's what we do. See you next time.